Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
So today we are going to talk about this thing going around where people are saying you should sell your house, and I'm going to sell my house and wait for the market to crash, and then I'll buy the house again.
So there are lots of people saying this. The question I want to ask them is, are they putting their houses on the market? Because if everybody who said that the sky was falling and the real estate market was going to crash would put their houses on the market, there would be a lot more inventory.
A lot more inventory. So we're going to, so what we did is we did an analysis. And the reason we had to do analysis because there's nuances that are different between buying and selling a house, like buying the house at a certain amount and then selling it later at a lesser amount, right? And then versus like an E-Trade account. So let's say, for example, you have Tesla stock and you have some shares in there. The shares go up to 1,000 and you sell them. You can sell them instantly for like $0. You just click a button and they sell. And then when you buy them back, if they go to 900, you click a button. But you can't do that with houses.
No.
Okay, so there's other things other than the cost. We're talking about the cost because there's other costs that you're going to go, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, and then when we show you the numbers, you'll be blown away. So watch the whole video. Okay, so let's start with cost of selling. Now for this example, the example I did is they bought a house for $300,000. Now their great plan is that they paid $300, it's worth $400. They're going to sell it and rebuy it when it goes to $300. Basically, that's the plan. That's like the market crashed 25%. It's back to where it's back to what they paid for, say 4 years ago, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's first talk about the costs, okay? $400,000 house, they're going to have some costs. What are the costs going to be to sell the house?
So the biggest costs, of course, are realtor fees and the title cost, title, escrow, all that sort of thing. So for our example, let's say that you got a smoking deal from your realtor and your realtor is doing it for 4% total, and let's say that the title fees are 2% total, so together it's 6% total. You got a great deal, and so 6%, 400,000, easy math, $24,000. Boom.
Okay.
So now you got 400 and minus 24,000, you owe 300, so your proceeds are $76,000.
Okay. For this purpose, I even said, well, they've had the house for a few years. They've paid down some of the mortgage.
Okay.
I counted that in there. So we actually come up with net proceeds of $96,000.
Nice.
So congratulations. You did a good job. You got $96,000. You didn't get the 100, but you got 96. But remember, some of that was because of 4 years of living in it and paying off the thing. And we're going to talk about that because that comes back and you're going to be like, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay. For the sake of this, I looked back and looked what interest rate you could have got, and would have got 2.75% interest rate. Your mortgage payment for that house back at $300,000 would have been $1,225, and that includes that's your flat out mortgage, principal, insurance, tax insurance, and I even include that when we do the repurchase. So the numbers. So don't argue about the numbers and say, oh, I this, whatever. I'm keeping everything the same to show you an example. This is one example, okay? All right. So your net proceeds are $96,000. Okay. Now you have to go rent.
Right.
Okay. This is where it gets weird. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide here. Okay. If you had sold because in 2004 or 5, you had thought the market was overbought and you got out when it was going up, you had to wait almost 7 years. Almost 7 years to get to the bottom to go buy again. If you waited 3 years and bought again, prices kept going down. So this thing where people say, I'm going to sell it right at the top and buy, because we're at the top right now, buy it right at the bottom. We know people that sold over a year ago because the market was going to collapse. It was going to collapse, and the opposite's happened, right? It's still gone up even more, and they said 2 years. It's gonna crash, and in 2 years I'll buy another house, right? So we're just going through the scenario. So first of all, we picked 5 years because I had to have a number of years. We could have picked 3, we could pick 7, but we picked 5 because I think that's a reasonable number, because the market isn't like Netflix stock, right? Where it just can crash 80% in one day. It doesn't work that way. It takes a long time. The last market crash took 5 years if you perfectly timed it, and nobody's going to perfectly time a change in prices. Okay, so we use 5 years. That house that you bought that's now worth $400,000 is $2,000 a month rent. That's $600 more than you were paying before. That $1,225 plus your taxes and insurance. that were added onto there. Also, when you were making that last mortgage payment, you were paying off $200 a month of principal reduction. So your economic loss is $800 a month. You're losing $800 a month by renting today versus the mortgage payment you had, because the payment's different, and now every time you pay rent, you're not reducing a mortgage. Because remember, when you got your net proceeds, we figured $20,000 of that came from those little payments you made every month over time, that building equity, right? Okay. People don't think about that, do they? They don't think about that.
That principal reduction is real money.
It's real money. It's real money. Okay. It's $9,600 per year, almost 10 grand. You're also not getting the tax deduction. So we went and did some math and figured out like average rate, what your mortgage payment would be. And we just conservatively said a couple grand a year. So we came to $12,000 a year. That's the total cost. That's the $9,600 plus roughly another $2,000 for that. So you're losing 12 grand a year by renting versus owning, right? That's why people in the first place don't buy or don't rent. They buy a house, right? Okay, after 5 years, that's 60 grand. So that's the actual loss, okay? Your break-even purchase cost now is $310,000. It's $310,000, meaning if you sold your house at $400,000, you waited 5 years and repurchased it at $310,000, you're breaking even. It's a wash. You didn't really buy high and sell low. It didn't work. Yeah, because you lost all that money that you would have. Meaning, if your next door neighbor in the same house was sitting in the same house and the price had gone down to $310,000, he wouldn't be any worse off, right? And that's about a 25% change. Okay, now we're going to go to the next slide here. Okay, now we're going to say you get even better deal, and you find the same house you lived in was $300,000. And I'm going to buy the house back at $300,000 that I just sold for $400,000. I have been in it for 5 years, right? You have 3% closing costs. Right. Probably because you have to get a loan again, and you have lender fees, and you probably have title and escrow fees. Very conservatively pick 3. It could be more. Right. So the average is 3%. Plus, on top of that, you're paying for an appraisal, about $600. You're paying for a home inspection, that's maybe $400, so that's another $1,000 right there. So let's see, 3% times 300,000, that's 9,000, plus the appraisal and the home inspection, now we're at 10,000, so that's 310,000. Okay, so basically, you could see where this is going, right? Because there's costs on both ends, you got to calculate those in, right? Then you have the costs of losing the interest rate deduction, and then you have the costs of the difference in rent, because rent is going to be more for most people. I mean, almost everybody that bought a house in the past is refied or has a much lower rate than what you would effectively pay for rent, okay? But your new payment of $1,800 a month on your rental is $575 a month more. That is $7,000 a year more. So let me I take that back. You just bought a house for $300,000, right? And you get a new loan. Well, interest rates probably aren't going to be 2.75%. Right. Okay. And so for the sake of argument, I just said they're the same as they are today. They could be 7 or 8%, but for the sake of arguments, let's say they're 5%. So you're going back to buy the same house you just got a 2.75% interest rate loan on, and you're getting 5% now. Your last payment was $1,275 or something like that. Yeah. Okay. It's now $1,800. Now you're still less than what you were paying. You're still better off than when you were renting, because you were paying $2,000 and now you're paying $1,800, which is less, plus your principal reduction. But the difference between your old mortgage payment is $575 a month. So you're paying more now. So in addition to not making any money on the sale and the buy, you're now paying $575 a month more. That's $7,000 a year. It's 210 grand more per year to pay off the same house. 210 grand more for over the life of the loan. Right, I'm sorry, over the life of the loan. So all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait. Are you seeing where this is going? This is why people aren't actually doing this. They're not actually selling the house. The reason they're not selling the house is because they realize I've got a low rate, my payment's not that much. If the market goes down, who really cares? Because I'm gonna have to go through all this crazy stuff again, get another loan, maybe the rate's not gonna be. And then all the money you lose paying rent over how many years it could be a lot of years. And then paying for 2 moves. Okay, paying for 2 moves, the move
Right.
out of your house to your rental, to move back in, and then the other thing too is that what if home prices don't really go down? What if they just stay the same or go up? Because home prices tend to go up. We got a whole nother video we're going to do where we got all the Gallup data on this. It's going to blow you away. This is like last month's data, so it's super current. Okay, could you imagine if you blew it and you were a market crasher, and you thought the market's gonna crash, you sold your house and moved, and then 10 years later home prices are more. You would probably be sitting in your rental, which you are now completely screwed financially, and you would be saying, oh, I'm going to wait again for the market to crash from 800,000 because I paid 300,000 for this house. It's worth 800,000 now, but when it goes to 300, I'll buy it back again. And even if it did, you would still lose money, right? Because you bought the house for 300, you would own it. It would probably be paid off by now, and you would probably have $800,000 of equity, and now you have nothing because you've been renting for a decade or something.
Right. Well, and there are other variables that we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about rent increases over the period of time that you're renting the property. We didn't talk about what if the property owner wants to do something else with the property and asks you to move and you have to move again, and what that cost is like. So there are other variables in there that you don't have if you're a homeowner, right? Because if you're a homeowner, you're staying put and you don't have these extra moves, and you're in control of your destiny, you're in control of your home. So there are other things to consider, both financial and otherwise, as far as the stability of being able to control your destiny and be in your own house and not be at somebody else's whim as to what they're going to do with the property.
Trying to time the market I don't know any stock pickers that can time the market. Certainly in real estate we just showed it doesn't work the same way. The stock market works differently than real estate. It doesn't happen instantly. The NASDAQ can fall 30% in a year, and then it can bounce back 30% the next year, but home prices don't ever do that. The last downturn took over 5 years from the top. The top was somewhere late 2005, and the bottom was in the September of 2011 or something like that. It was almost 6 years. It was definitely over 5 years. And most people can't actually perfectly time it, as we've discussed the person who's now in their second year of renting because, in their words, the market was going to collapse. They were convinced the market was going to collapse, so they sold their house.
Right. So in this particular case, these people sold their house for about $450,000. Their house today is worth about $550,000. And they've been renting at about $2,300 a month for 15 months.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of what's going on. So you have to make sure that if you're going to sell your property, sell it for the right reasons and understand the impact that that's going to have on you long term. These are big financial decisions, and you have to do more than be a person who believes that the market's going to fall. There has to be more to it than that. Agents who are telling you to sell your house, are they selling their house? Agents who are telling you to sell your rentals, are they selling their rentals? And those are questions to ask, because let's face it, real estate agents make money when you sell your property. If you're not selling your property, they're not making money. So we're not encouraging you to sell your property. We're encouraging you to sell your property if it makes sense for you, not just because people are telling you that the sky is falling.
And we want to make this clear. We are not advocating that you not sell your house.
No, absolutely
We're not saying that. All we're doing, the whole point of this video was to explain what we want to get you guys to think about what the actual cost of selling would be. That house you paid $300,000 for, that you got 2.75% interest rate, if you buy the house back at 5%, it's not that much of it's a much worse deal, even though. And then if you had to rent it for 5 years, et cetera. We just want you to think about these things, because if you don't think about it, you make a bad decision. Look, if you have to sell because you want to move and you don't want to be a landlord, then sell your house and then go somewhere else and buy a house, or go somewhere and rent. I don't care what you do, right? We're not like pumping people to buy houses, because we don't work with buyers. Like, we don't want you to come to us and drive you all over town to help you buy a house. We're not those people. So that it's funny that the things people say in the comments when they disagree with us based on everything we've shown has been a fact or data. We're just talking about data, and then they try to, instead of actually arguing or trying to explain their point of view with data, they complain about, oh, you're just real estate agents pumping the market. Look, we don't have enough of a following to quote unquote pump the market. And Jim Cramer, who's probably the worst stock picker ever, has a huge audience, and he literally 80% of the time tells people the wrong things about what's happening, like what you should do with what stocks you should buy or sell or anything. He's like literally the worst there is. Like almost you'd be better off if what he said something on TV, you did the opposite, right?
Well, there are people who have that stock picking method where they line the bottom of the bird cage, and wherever the bird droppings fall, that's where
they pick those stocks.
Those are the stocks.
Right.
Those have done pretty well.
Those have done pretty well. So anyway, the whole point of the video is that the people, and here I want to say something else too about if your real estate agent says, look, the market's overbought, you should really sell that house and rent for a few years and buy back, and I'll help you buy back in a couple years, right, when the market drops. Well, are you doing the same thing? And then see what they say. They'll probably say, well, but the kids, they really like the house. They really like the house. So if you knew, so you would take a maybe six-figure, if you really believed the market was going to collapse, you would stay in the house that you knew was overpriced and the market was going to collapse. You would stay in the house just because the kids like it? Like seriously, when you bought the house, did you say, we really want this house, but the kids like this one and it's $200,000 more, so we're gonna buy it, right? Or it's just too hard for us to move right now because it's close, it's convenient to work, blah, blah, blah. They'll give you a bunch of excuses, right? So that's my belief. I mean, I know that I'm in a group, it's a real estate mastermind YouTube group, and I 100% can tell you there are agents in that group the conversation is, I need more listings, and the answer is do a video about how the market's overpriced in your market, and people will come to you to sell their house. That's no kidding what they're doing. If we wanted more listings in Vegas, all we would do are market collapse videos. We would do probably 3 a week, and we would probably get 50,000 views a day and make a ton of money and get a ton of listings. But this is what we're doing. We're not trying to predict anything. And I don't want to try to tell everybody the market's going to collapse, and it doesn't, and then everyone get super mad at us because Todd and Wanda told us to sell the house. We've never told you to sell a house. We've never told you to buy a house. All we do is we look at data, and then we, from our experience, tell you what we think it means.
Right, and we're not telling you not to sell the house. We're telling you to look at what's going on and make a decision based on your particular situation rather than people who are advocating one thing or another for their own purposes. Okay, this has to be for your reasons, not theirs.
Yeah, I apologize. This was kind of a long video. We're not going to probably cut any of it. We just let the whole thing go. But because we ranted a little bit in there. Yeah, I ranted mostly in there. And people complain in the video when I rant. In the comments, they complain. But the truth is, we wanted to give you this information, and we thought it was kind of interesting. So
it is interesting. Look, whether your agent is not selling his house because then his cat wouldn't know where to come home, or whether your agent isn't selling her house because it's in her walking group, whatever that reason is, it doesn't matter because this is your decision, your property, your rental, your home, whatever, and it has to make sense for you.
Oh, I want to point out one thing. Of all of the houses we've sold in the last 2 years, listings that we've sold, 0 of them have been because we advocated to a client that we thought the market would collapse and they should sell their house and rent. We haven't done that with anybody. Every single person has had a legitimate reason. I'm being transferred to another city, and I don't want to have a rental house. I just want to sell this because I want to take my equity out and go and buy a house in my new duty station. Or we've had a rental house for 20 years. We want to sell it because we're retiring. We want to just, or we're going to do a 1031 exchange or whatever. Everyone's had a reason. We've never said to somebody, hey, like if somebody called and said, do you think we should sell our investment property and like put it in the stock market or whatever? First of all, we would never give anyone advice like that kind of advice because we're not financial advisors. But we haven't like said anything to people that would incentivize them to like sell their house because we haven't done that with our own properties. And we haven't done it with a substantial number of investors who over the years we've been helping. We haven't called them all and said, you guys should sell all your houses so we can retire.
Right. So We know it was a long video. We apologize. We will try to keep it a little more brief next time. But in the meantime, please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave us love notes, leave us links to data that we can consider for future videos.
Yep.
And we appreciate your support. Bye.
Bye.